Hey, welcome back to the channel. I am really glad you're here because I could use your help. I've been working on the Jeep and I spent the last couple of afternoons just tinkering with it. I started taking parts off so I could get to the head, and I was going to record that, but I thought this is not a how-to video because I'm not, I'm mechanically inclined, but I'm not a mechanic. And I've never done anything like this before. I've changed water pumps and valve cover gaskets. So I've never gone as deep as to take the head off of a vehicle. So as you might remember in the initial video where I introduced the Jeep, I thought that perhaps I had a blown head gasket and that was forcing compression into the cooling system, which caused it to overheat, caused it tremendous pressure in the cooling system. So after 2 afternoons of tinkering, I have got it down to this far, and I've got the head off, so let me show you what I found here. So I was trying to remove as little as possible. I would take one part off and then the next. I think one of the first things was the intake manifold and the exhaust manifold. I got those loose and they pulled back just enough, and then I had to start taking some other brackets off. I ended up taking off the water pump, although I don't think I had to, looking at this point, but then I thought, I'm this far, I might as well take the fan shroud off, give myself room to work, and then I might as well take the water pump off. And if we are successful in fixing the problem here, or at least identifying it, then I might as well put a new water pump on, because I'm not going to be down this far again anytime soon. So let's take a closer look at the head now that I have that off. Now, what I'm calling the cylinders here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what I was getting, first of all, I was getting a code saying cylinder number 3 was misfiring, and that would be this one here. You can see some coolant laying on top of the piston, and I think that was in there before. I don't think that happened when I took the head off, so that is an indicator. The other pistons look pretty good. So if I compare that now to the head, and I've got this laying down, and these are that's an exhaust port, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. Cylinder 1, cylinder 2, cylinder 3, and cylinder 4. Let's take a look at number 1. Now it's rusty. Now I don't know what a head would normally look like, but it seems odd to have that rust in there. Number 2 here has rust as well, and I see a little bump in the gasket here, but I don't see anything where it looks like any kind of pressure was going by or any coolant coming in. Now the gasket looks pretty good. I've got a little crack here, but as you may already see here, cylinder number 3 is the one that said was misfiring. Look at this valve. Is that what a burnt valve looks like? Look more closely. That doesn't look like it's designed that way, and that would be, looking at our earlier visual, that's an exhaust. So that's an exhaust valve, which means when the piston pushes forward, that is where the exhaust goes out. That cylinder number 3 also has surface rust on there. And then of course cylinder number 4 looks the same as the others. But what I was hoping to find here was some kind of crack in the gasket, which would indicate that it was pushing exhaust into the system, into the cooling system. I don't really know. I don't even know if that's the case. I see these are cooling ports here, and on the other side, that's where the cooling goes in. These are the holes for the head bolts. So I don't know much more about where the cooling goes. So I don't know. I'm going to have to take this to a machine shop, I guess, and see what this is all about and get the head checked out. Well, there we are, and apologies for not recording video on that. But again, it's not a how-to video, and I think I would just disappoint you just having you watch me work on taking that apart. I will say this, and I don't want to jinx myself, but all the bolts came out easily. I was really worried that bolts would crack off. They came out pretty easily. In fact, the valve cover bolts were actually hand tight. I put the socket on it, and they actually, I could just put a socket on it and just twist them out by hand. So they were loose. The head bolts were tight because they're torqued down quite a bit. I was able to use a breaker bar, and one thing I learned, which was very interesting, let me show you something here with these head bolts. I've got a bunch of new parts here. Got new ignition parts, you know, thinking positively that we'll make it that far, and bought all new head bolts. So this is a new head bolt, for example. Now, when I saw these, I thought there were some sort of inverted Torx. And then I learned also from my nephew, who's a diesel mechanic, he said that's not an inverted Torx. What it is, it's a 12-sided head. So a standard socket or wrench, it's just a 12-point socket. And this one's 1/2 inch, maybe it's metric too, but 1/2 inch, slides right on there, gives you contact on all 12 points. So I didn't need any kind of special tool for that. I was able to just use a standard deep well socket, 1/2 inch, but it's got to be 12 point. So that was pretty interesting. I'm just storing all the parts in the Jeep itself to stay quasi-organized. Probably the most organized thing I did, thanks to advice from my nephew, was when I took out the push rods, I labeled each one where the number is, that's the top of the push rod, and I put them in order from front to back. So I do have the push rods labeled, so they'll go back exactly as I found them. And I've got a can of nuts and bolts, and I'm hoping, it's dangerous, but I'm kind of hoping on counting on my memory for that. So a short little update today. That's going to do it for today, but I do want to mention that if you've not yet subscribed to the channel, I invite you to join us. And certainly follow along on Facebook and Instagram for other updates, because I tend to post pictures on there, photos and short updates. So follow along on Facebook and Instagram as well. Also, you'll see some updates about Irma, the baby lamb. I post some pictures on there too. So, but that's going to be it for today. I do appreciate you being here. And as always, I look forward to seeing you next time.